Pettersson var ute och roade sig en kväll. På morgonen han vandrade hem och var så glad och snäll. Men porten den var stängd så han kom inte in. Han kastade grus på fönstret och fick högt frittin. Rackare, trummel, rummelbott och nöt. Hon skrek och hennes mörkelögon himska blixtar sköt. Tänderna lyste, hon var i stor extas. Han måste se på kärgen genom största glas.
I'm glad you could join me today. I wanted to talk about the Fun with Fang Adventure Jam, and hopefully, if there's anybody that's considering joining the jam and they have questions, feel free to pop them in the comments at any point. I just wanted to kind of go over some of the resources, and I do have some other windows open, and like I said, I might have some technical difficulties, but I'll show you some of the InDesign templates that are available to you and just kind of go through those, as well as talking about just, I guess, in general, game design and adventure design and all the things that you can do. So anyways, glad you can join me here on a Friday night. I know there's probably better things out there for everybody to be doing, but if you are at home and you are watching, very much appreciate you joining, and let's talk about game design, and maybe just even talk about a little bit about the news before we jump in here. Just lots of stuff going on in the game design world. You can see all the leadership leaving the WotC team, so that's kind of interesting to see where D&D ends up going in the future. I usually don't dip my toes into like kind of commenting on this kind of stuff because I don't know, my North Star is like indie games, but when the elephant is in the bed with you and they roll over, and often that elephant can cause a lot of disruption to you, as well as the other kind of big item that's kind of been happening now is the Trump tariffs on, in particular, Chinese goods, but also I'm in Canada, so it's actually also on Canadian goods, and then there's still like a little bit of confusion as to whether those tariffs apply to books. Some people say they do, some people say they don't, and ultimately too, like what I've found is when I delivered the Fang booklets, what I found was coming from Canada to the States, it was good as far as the little envelopes that got passed down through the border and then they got mailed. That all worked out because you're allowed to distribute up to $800 from Canada into the US. And I think that plan is changing. So I'm not too sure what the future holds for game designers in Canada either. But with that said, I don't think anybody really knows how any of this is going to shape up for anything. And you can see there's a lot of board game companies that are either tapping out or making, I guess, overtures to that they might have to close up. And then there's the Steve Jackson Games, who I've had Steve Jackson on. I'll maybe put the link up there after the live stream. I'll put the link up above. I've had Steve Jackson on as a guest, who was lovely. I've been a big fan of Steve Jackson. To me, Car Wars was one of my in my upcoming game Bugbusters, I really got a lot of inspiration from the Uncle Albert books from Car Wars. And so, I'd hate to see, somebody that's been around for so long, like Steve Jackson, eventually succumb to something that maybe might be out of his control. But anyways, I love games and I love game designers, and hopefully that we can all figure this out and create a better place for sharing games in the future. Which brings me to talking about the Fun with Fang Adventure Jam. So for those that are maybe watching and going, well, what the heck is this guy talking about? I made a little game called Fängelsehåla. You can see the little booklet here. It's a minimalist TTRPG. And I think I was, sometimes when you're doing something and you stumble across something and you go, huh, that works, and it's like a bit of a happy accident, and maybe it's like discovering penicillin from mold or whatever. I wouldn't call it mold, but anyways, I kind of stumbled across some mechanics that I really liked based upon Sandy Peterson's West End Games D6 system, and which I think is one of the easiest systems to learn. And what I tried to do is kind of boil down the West End Games D6 system into a game set of rules that are minimal, light, and that can be also tactile and fun at the table. So when I'm just kind of flipping through there, but you can see very like 44 pages, pretty light game, Fängelsehåla. You can purchase these. You can also get a free version at the itch link. I don't know if I have that prepared, but if you go to the itch jam link, you can easily link to the free version of this. Some of the artwork stripped out, not all of it, some of it. So I mean, it's like a functional game. You can go and try it out yourself if you have not done so yet. You can also purchase still hard copies from my website, and there's links on the jam as well to do that. And I should note, if you are entering the jam, the Adventure Jam, that if you put in an entry, you get 2 free books sent to you after you enter. So that's another way to get your hands on the hot little copy of Fängelsehåla. I should also note that it's also for sale not only on my website, the physical and digital downloads, and itch and drive-thru-RPG, but you can also get it through Ratty Incantati, which is another Canadian store that has a lot of indie games. So if you're like, well, if I'm going to pay for shipping, I want a lot of indie games, go to Ratty Incantati, and they will be able, they have like a lot of really good indie games, and you can just bundle them up together so that you're only kind of paying one shipping cost instead of just buying it from me. So with that said, I did want to talk about the Fun with Fang Jam, and I will bring up the screen. And like I said, bear with me. I've got probably too many windows open for this. I got like really probably ahead of myself, where I was going to like showcase like some of the art and how to update it and bring it into Photoshop and bring it into Illustrator and all that kind of stuff. At this point, I am just happy to kind of have a window that I can share on the screen. So let's just start with that. So this is the Fun with Fang Adventure Jam. You can see, I'm going to move that other thing off the screen so that it's not in the way. You can see there's 68 entries, or not entries, but people that have joined the jam. So that if you want to be one of them, it's easy enough. All you have to do is have an itch profile and you can join. It's as simple as that. If you scroll down, you can see there's some basic instructions, how to participate. And maybe for some of you, one of the incentives is that you're going to be judged and you might be eligible for one of the prizes. So we've got the gold and the silver and the bronze, pretty typical stuff. And they have the also gift cards of $300 for the gold, 200 for the silver, 100 for the bronze, and that will be IKEA gift cards, hence the theme. And if you couldn't tell by the little guys, some of the illustrations were IKEA inspired. So there's those grand prizes, as well as gift cards for other kind of little things we just thought would be fun, like best art, best layout, best map, NPC, new monster, magic items, and best use of the Swedish IKEA vibe. So with that said, there's also we encourage you to make your monsters. And I've said this before on a few TikToks. So if you're not subscribed to me on TikTok, feel free to, it's Daikun Games, same as my YouTube channel. I talk about some of the illustrators that inspired me. But if I've said many times on there, if I can do it, you can do it. So do not limit yourself as far as your art goes, because I'll show you, it's like not simple, but it's all doable. There's also resources, which I'll be covering here shortly. There's the online form if you do want to get a free digital copy with the artwork. So just fill that out, and I'm more than happy to send you that. There's also, like I said, there's also the free limited art version there. But to get the full scope of the kind of the game and the style, I encourage you to check out the full art. So if you're going to enter the jam, just fill out the form. Also, as I mentioned here, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok. I'm going to have more tips and tutorials and just talking about my inspirations for the game. There's also a Discord channel. If you want to go to that Discord server and share your work, get feedback, there's some good people in that Discord. And also, as I will be talking about shortly, that there are a bunch of blog posts, which I'll be talking about. And there's brainstorming ideas, how to make monsters, how to make magic heirlooms, how to make maps, how to get inspiration from fairy tales. I covered that in a previous video, so I'm not going to kind of get into some of that. But learning about illustrators, that's just an ongoing process. I also have a really good Pinterest board that has like a ton of like really good examples of like killer mid-century illustrations and art. So if you want to check that out, and you can see up here from the itch address, you can go to all these links. And there's also, maybe not widely known, and it's probably blasphemy, but I mean, OSR is one of those things that's nebulous. Everybody doesn't even agree on what OSR stands for. But the principles of OSR are that the person playing and their skill that they bring to it, their creativity that they bring to it, is kind of primary. That's at least my take on the OSR, is that the player skill is primary, and the stats on your page are kind of not less important, but for the most part, we want you to kind of embody the character. And it's going back to those like early days of role playing, and that was one of the things that inspired me about making Fang, is I wanted it to have those OSR principles. But if you are expecting to roll a d20, no, that's not happening. Once again, the system itself is actually based upon the West End Games D6 system, and I've tried to boil that down to its absolute minimal core. And then I thought, well, how can we actually include the dice into the mechanics? And so in the game itself, there's different types of D6, and so it kind of actually minimizes the West End Games D6 system, and then it expands upon it by bringing that tactile dice aspect into the game. And when you take damage, you actually stack black doom dice. So it really does like lean into the dice as part of the game. I also have a using the 3 E's to make locations. I did discuss that on my last video, so I probably won't go back into that again. But that's basically in the game, when you make a tie, it's called a jinx, and something kind of bad or weird happens upon the jinx. And when you're designing your adventure, you want to put those kind of possibilities of a jinx into your design. And understanding how to set difficulty. So with any new system, sometimes it can get a little bit difficult to go, well, how strong should a monster be, or how difficult should an action be to pull off? So I do actually have a chart. Like, we get really nerdy into the math part of it. And then also I have a guide on how to make digital art from sketches. And I'll go into that a little bit. I've got some templates. So you can download templates. Like, couldn't be easier. You just download, there's an Affinity template and there's InDesign templates. I happen to use the Adobe products, and I know some people are like really down on Adobe. I luckily use them for my work. Otherwise, I probably would flip over to Affinity, but I do use them for my work. So therefore, I have access to them, and they do work nicely with each other. So that's the one thing I'll say, is that the Adobe products, between I use Illustrator and I use InDesign and I use Photoshop. And I'm kind of a throwback guy. When I first went to school, I learned how to do Flash animation. And for years, I mean, that was kind of my thing, is I really loved Flash animation. And I made complete websites out of Flash animation. And so with that said, it's kind of died off. Apple quit supporting it, and then people quit kind of using it, but I still use it for some of my like TikTok videos and kind of promoting the game. So I might even jump into Flash. It's now called Animate with air quotes, because they wanted people to make that more like a character animator in that. And then finally, using the Fang templates. I'll show you how to kind of like download them, and then you can see how you can change backgrounds. I've got a whole suite of backgrounds, one for forest, volcano kind of vibes to it, ice. And then, of course, as I mentioned, I've got the Pinterest board. And what I'll do is actually, I'll just open up that Pinterest board because it is really good. So if you go in here, I just added a few funny mid-century modern kind of looks to it. But if you go in here, there is a ton of inspiration from illustrators that I've come across. And I've got like a lot of these books, and I make TikToks about them, like why they inspire me, what I like about them. You've got Mary Blair here. You've got, let's see if I can find Art Seiden. Art Seiden was like the king of inspiration for me. I really liked his work. So I know I saw one up here earlier. If I go Art Seiden, his style is just like perfect for the way I like it in the design. So there's a ton of inspiration here for you to access. And I think lots of pins. And so just to close off, if you have not heard about the Game Jam, September the 11th is the deadline to submit. I purposely did that because I really hope that you take the time. You could finish it in a week if you want to, but I do also encourage you to kind of take the time to make the game that you want. I know some jams are like really short and they're just like 2-3 weeks type of thing. And sometimes that's good because sometimes that like really pushes people to go, okay, I'm going to do it and that. But also I did think that, some of, if you're in university and you're like, oh, I've got 4 months of like a little bit more time, this is an opportunity. And I didn't want it to be too early in September because then I know that's a busy time getting back to school and that kind of thing. So anyways, the jam runs till September. If you enter, you will receive 2 booklets from myself. And also the winners of the gold, silver, and bronze will be featured right here on this YouTube channel and podcast. So I hope those are incentives. And as I've mentioned before, I am here to support your journey. So if I can make a game, you can make a game. On my website, daikugames.com, and I've got, there's a whole bunch of Fang links up here you can check out. But in particular, if you go to the blog, I put all the resources that I've created for the jam also in one spot. So you can either get to them from linking here, resources to get you started, or if you go to my blog, they're all in kind of one location that you can kind of get a better sample and picture of kind of what we're talking about. I've got like write-ups on some of the illustrators that you can learn from and maybe get inspiration from. There's, like I said, one for Mary Blair, one for Art Seiden. There's some older videos that are on there, but a lot of information. And also, I should point out on the jam here, there's also a community tab. So if you have a question that you want asked or answered, it could also be there. So this video is meant to provide a little bit of that stuff, some of the questions that have kind of come up, but not entirely. And then if you also want to go check out what the third-party adventure license entails, if you click on that, you can see the logos, the kind of the vibe, what you can and what you can't do. So this is for an adventure only at this point. So, but if you have other questions, as always, just feel free to reach out and ask me. So let's dive into some of the things that have been added anew to the blog. One of the things was mapping. So if we click on here and go to the story of mapping. So this is a map from my King Kringle adventure. Not entirely done yet, but in draft form. The cutaway maps that you can see in this booklet on the back page. That's kind of the default for, it's a like kind of a parallel dungeon crawler, like a platform game like Pitfall or Mario Brothers. There's also location-based maps, and I showed you the King Kringle one. And there's also I'm a big fan of like Disneyland maps. Like those are like super cool. I have a whole book of Disneyland maps I might go through at some point. There's Winnie the Pooh and the Thousand Acre Wood, of course, Middle Earth, and here's a Neverland map. I don't know if Mary Blair did that, but quite possibly. But that's like just from the Disney archives. And why these types of maps particularly work for Fang is because Fang has a kind of story vibe to it. And so if you like children's storybooks like from the 60s, so maps like that can really delve in. And then one of the things I really like to do is just like give the players a map and say, where do you want to go? And that really goes with the OSR ethos, as far as let the players kind of guide where they want to go. And that allows you to just not railroad them and just kind of go, here's some like places that you might want to explore, and get them excited. And a good map can do that. So here's the top down typical that you might see in a D&D adventure. And then if you are talented enough to do an isometric version of that, that's also kind of a cool feature that they have. And then I rarely use these just because it's kind of unique, or not unique, but I think a lot of OSR, old D&D, like to use hex maps where you like land on a hex and then there's a random table based upon what the picture is on the hex of like what you might find there. And you can create like just whole random adventures just through traveling through the area. And that's fine if you're, if you have like no fixed adventure. But in a adventure jam and like with somewhat of a goal in mind, hex maps are probably not exactly what we want to use, but I just put it in there. And so, like I said, here's the benefits and the downsides of each of those types of maps. The other thing, now I could go into this later if anybody's interested, but if not, that's fine too, of how do you get a sketch from a digital, like just paper, and then make it into digital, and then give it a little bit of texture. You can see the top of the pumpkin and the arms have that kind of grainy 1960s vibe to it. So you can see slingerbacked here. That was my initial concept. I have some just paper lying around, and I printed it out so that it would be on that kind of landscape size, just so I could get a better idea for how it would fit. I just went, I want to make in the King Kringle adventure, Prince Pumpkin kidnaps King Kringle, and I thought, well, he needs his people that are following him, and what better than a giant pumpkin with vines to snatch people. So that was kind of the original rough sketch of that. So I took a picture of it just on my phone. So I took this picture, and from that picture, it ended up being this image up here, Slingervaxed, which is in Swedish. It's like a vine. So I just thought it had a cool sound to it, and that was the name of it. So I just took a photo, and I brought it in to Illustrator. And from Illustrator, I kind of like used different tools to create the shape that I wanted to. One of the more recent additions to Illustrator is the width tool of lines, which just really adds like a little bit of flair. You can see up here, like you can change like widths, and it just kind of helps with that the line of it. So I find that like a useful tool when I'm bringing it into Illustrator. And then once I have it I'm happy in Illustrator, I bring it into Photoshop, and I kind of break it apart into different layers. And so you can see here, like the pumpkin was on a layer on its own. I basically brought that into Photoshop, and then I brought in the pumpkin face over top of that. But if you look, you can see I painted the pumpkin so that it had like a bit of texture to it, and I painted the vine grippers So it had a bit of texture to it. And then if you kind of look closer here, you can see all the texture that I painted in with Photoshop. And in the tutorial here, there's brushes that I recommend using. And I also have a color swatch. And at some point, I'll probably do a little bit more color theory as far as like why I chose different colors. And once again, that Art Seiden book of fairy tales, to me, it was like that's the ultimate inspiration. And so if you find a book that you go, I really love the color of it, you can go into Photoshop and you can pick out the colors to create it. And if I go back here now and I go to the where's my InDesign templates? If you go into here, so you can see this is the upcoming adventure for King Kringle. And some of this was done in Illustrator, and then some of it I hand drew, like some of the decorative more features. And I have a little Wacom tablet. So I'm not sure if let me just open that up here. So this is a Wacom tablet. Pardon the fingerprints. I'm going the wrong way because it's a mirror image. And on the Wacom tablet, I use this pen. And that really helps me with some of the hand pieces a little bit more. If I bring that back on, you can see like the decoration on the sled and the bottom of the sled. And so that's kind of like my way of it's a mishmash. And it's funny, like I think a lot of times people feel that like unless you can draw it like all by hand and that kind of stuff, like you're not doing it justification or justice, I should say. But for me, I like kind of combining shapes and making things work and using all the tools at my disposal. And so if you kind of mash it up like I do, and I kind of make it like some shapes, some hand drawing, some everything, and I just slam it together and put textures on it, that seems to work for me. I am not a high artist, and once again, that's what I say is like if I can do it, you can do it. So all the tools are here. There's a download link here, so you can actually download the templates, and I'll actually show you how you can kind of change the background on the templates. So it's an InDesign template and an Affinity template, and if you download them, some of the pages are already set up, and you can go in and kind of fuddle with them. And maybe in the background while that's going, I should let me just bear with me here. I'm just going to open up a template so that you can see better, and then I'll move over to that at some point. But the templates are very good as far as you can change it to how you see fit. There's like different, if you look at my book, there's some templates that have like 3 columns and that kind of thing. So let me just flip out here for a sec. So I'm going to quit sharing the screen, and I'm going to add a new screen. So once again, I need a team here because, oh yeah. So if everybody can see that, this is InDesign. So I'm gonna kind of try to flip between here. And I'm just gonna go through some of the elements of what you're seeing on the screen. So just, it's a big, some of these backgrounds are like big files, and it's all over the network. So when you join the Fäng Adventure Jam, you can or you cannot. It's up to you. But if you want to have the Fun with Fang logo on there to say that it's Fang compatible, there is logo, and that was kind of meant to be like those 1960s children book awards. That's the idea behind it, was that it was like that. So if you go through some of these templates, I'll zoom out just a little bit so you can see them a little bit better. So these are spreads, and this image here in the background is just like a Photoshop file, a JPEG in this case, and that's just sitting in the background. So if I click on my layers, you can see I've got your content and your backgrounds here. So if I lock that background, I can't move it anymore. Like I'm dragging it, I can't. But if I unlock it, then I can drag it. So I've kind of made the layers for you to be able to do that. And then there's also on your content, like if you have text files or text frames that you want to change, they're already there. So these are like the 2 columns. And if you go here, there's just like more like text without headers in 2 columns. And then I also have a bulleted list that you can use it as an example, and then some kind of background kind of texture to give it a little bit more depth as far as like telling what's apart. Oh, I should have changed that. Look at that. It's a mistake. It should have been a 6. Anyways, that's the joy of templates. And you can see the background here is the forest background that I created. So if you have something that's kind of more forest themed, you can change it in there. And I think this one is, let me see what link this was. This is the volcano one. So it's got more of an like kind of orange vibe to it. And then this one is just the paper texture, which you would find in most of the booklet here is this paper texture. The volcano one, it has a little bit more like redness to it. And then there's the forest one, and then the winter one, which is for the, like, I'm using it for the King Kringle. And you can see that there's different tables and different things. So if you're making a D66 table, here's a 2-column one. So if you count it up, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So when you take a D66 table and like split it up, it'll be that. And if you have a D66 table and you have all of the 36 options, there's a table for that. And other kind of backgrounds. And here's a D66 table for like what I use for magic items. You don't have to have that many. It's 36. And then finally, as I mentioned, there's also the color swatch. So this is the color swatch that I created from the Art Seiden book. And I just like basically took the color dropper from my Photoshop and went in and like picked different colors and gave them my own name. And then that's the hex code there. There's RGB and CMYK codes for those that are kind of like more into the print and all that kind of stuff. But for most people, having a web code, which is the 6-digit hexadecimal code, that's going to be probably easiest to kind of remember. But you can take any of these really. And let me just like, so if I grab one and I say, oh, I want that background to be there, that color, I can change it and just do the eyedropper there. So I could completely change any of these elements in the templates based upon your preferences. So if you have a color scheme that you're working with, you can do that. I'm just undoing that. But all these colors are here, located here. And if you actually go to, if I open it up, there's also the swatches that are in the template. So they're already here. So you don't have to like drag it around or anything like that. You can do the same thing. That was flat yellow. So if I just click flat yellow, I can do that. And if I want like more like a rainbow, maybe the next one is orange. Your design, you do what you want with it. The tools are there. They're all in the color swatches. So I tried to make it as easy as possible for you to make a game. And so if you want to change the background, like on this, if you want to change it, all you have to do is swap it out with like there's all those the different types. So you can just like choose in that folder that it comes with it. You can just change the background to whichever one fits. And I should also note, you do not have to, you do not have to have the logo, but you can also move the logo if your design is like where you don't want it to be in the center. You can move it to the right, or if you want it up in the right, top right, left, or not at all. It's up to you. I really designed this itch jam for you to make what you want to make. So I don't want to be a police on this. I just want you to have fun. So that is, I'll go back to the page now for the jam. And let's see, here we go. Templates, back to that. Okay, bear with me while I find my window. There we go. So as you can see, I put the Fun with Fang logo there. Just, I thought it fit best there because it had a little gap. So you can put that there. You can download the templates up there. Also in the blog post is fonts. So I list all the fonts that I used and that you might enjoy. So you can see the colors there. And speaking of that, I actually do have a better post on typography. So if you want to get like the style that you want, it does not have to be the same fonts that I use. This is a Rankin Bass called, it had a good name. It was called Misfit Island. Misfit, I gotta look. What was it called? Island of Misfit Toys, which totally makes sense. So that was for my King Kringle because it was really inspired by Rankin Bass. And so, you know, there's kind of standard rules of like, you know, you have your, don't do the standard rules, which I'll say that you're allowed to break them in a second. The standard rules are like, have like a nice bold font, and then like it could be scripty, might not be, but have a nice header, and then that's legible, and then have your regular font. And then you can kind of throw in script fonts from time to time if it makes sense. Now, with that said, I just bear with me here as I show it to you. When I made the particularly the Doomsayer section, and I had this section where I wanted people to be able, because like you're making dungeons on the fly, I purposely chose to switch out the fonts at that point to make it beasts and serpents. I wanted the font to kind of match the page so that if you rolled on the random table that you were going to encounter a serpent, like I wanted you to be able to find that as quickly as possible. So, and same with Enchanted and Bugs, I wanted you as a Doomsayer, which is the GM in the game, to be able to find it as quickly as possible. So I decided to customize each page with its own font. And that is officially kind of breaking the rules. And then I go back to the regular font there. So I did break the rules. I knew why I was breaking the rules. And if you know why you're breaking the rules, feel free to break the rules. But it's good to understand kind of like, you know, try to limit your fonts and try to keep the kind of simple. So if I go back to here, and if you look at the fonts that I used, and then I also have some other ones that you might find useful. And those are all either free or limited kind of personal commercial use. So check them out. And once again, there's kind of some tips on pairing fonts and font size. If you open up the templates, you'll know that some of my main text is just 9.5, and that seems to work for me. In fact, I have to say, even at 9.5, sometimes I went, boy, that seems big. And when I look at other books, like, and maybe I'm starting to show my age, I'm like, that's tiny font compared to some of the other books, like a D&D or something like that. But anyways, I wanted people to be able to read it very quickly and legibly, and so I kind of found that sweet spot for me, but that sweet spot might be different for you. And so once again, you can download the templates. There's all sorts of stuff. And then just a bit of house cleaning as far as like one of the other newer blog posts is talking about the difficulty with the dice. So I might have mentioned it. I mentioned it earlier that it's like West End Games, but the difference between my version of this is that you only take the top 2 results. Because one of the things I really disliked, I always feel bad when I say that because it's such a good system, but one of the things I really didn't like was counting up the pips on the dice. So if in Star Wars, if you were Darth Vader or Han Solo or whatever, you'd roll like 8 dice, and then okay, I got to count and compare it to whatever the difficulty was, which could be like a 20 difficulty, and then you're trying to get over 20 pips on the dice, and it just wasn't fast. And so I hoped to speed it up. And so for me, what I call the Doom 6 system is that you take the top 2 dice, and that's all that counts. So it's surprisingly quick. Your mind starts to like analyze it very quickly, where you just go, okay, top 2 dice, top 2 dice, top 2 dice. And sometimes you might have like, 3 5s, but you're still only looking at the top 2, and it's very quick. And so when everybody rolls, like, it's very quick to discern if you were successful, because the scale is on just 12 too. And so the GM, the Doomsayer, basically says, okay, if you're going to jump over this ravine, the difficulty is 8, and you need to like get a running start at it and roll your agility. And then if your agility is 3, you only get to use the top 2 dice and hope that you can get over that 8 difficulty. So it's kind of simple, but the caveat being it's not equal. And what happens is, as you scale up the difficulty and also add dice, there's all sorts of different factors that come to play. Now, I kind of personally like this because, one of the challenges is like when the difference between an 8 difficulty and a 9 difficulty is more. And you can see with the bell curve, the 2d6 bell curve, it's pretty even along the way. So it, starts here on the left side, and so 7 is the average that you're always going to get, but there's outliers, and then the percentage chance of those outliers. But as you add dice to it, you change that bell curve. So 3d6 changes the bell curve so that it averages out at the 9 there. And then if you go to 4d6, it averages out at 10. And then if you go to 5d6, it averages out at 11. And then even at 66, guess what? It averages out at 11. So the interesting part to me is that 12 is still always going to be extremely difficult to kind of get. There's not always that chance, but it does improve. So understanding how to set your difficulty is kind of key to being a game designer in Fang, like an adventure designer, as well as being a good Doomsayer. So I hope this kind of helps out where the averages kind of fit. And it's like non-linear, just, going from 6 to 9 is like it makes the difficulty a lot more, as well as going from 9 to 12. So I like playing with it. I find it really fast. Like I'm kind of, I hate to be this person, but I got to the point where I'm like, I love this system so much. I know it's my system and it's maybe my baby, but I just I can play it so quick and so easy and so fast. And I do have plans to transfer this system maybe to some other stuff where I think it really would work well, like like a kind of pulpy action Indiana Jones type story, like a gangbusters type thing, or like a noir thing, like a Call of Cthulhu. would work very well, I think, in those systems. So I kind of have like that in the back of my mind, but I've got a lot of work ahead of me on Fang and Bug Busters, which will be launching when the tariff stuff is kind of figured out more. So anyways, that's the system. And if you do want to check out the die roller, you can check out the die roller here. So as an example, if you have agility of 3 and you roll, then you can see that it's an 8 score. It's just the 5 and the 3. Let's roll again. So a 6 and a 2, that's another 8. A 5 and a 2, that's a 7. And a 3 and a 3. One of the reasons I choose the die roller to be online is because if you're playing online, like seeing the other dice is like an important piece of it. And so like in this case, I roll 2 3s. That's a fail. I missed by 2, but now I've got some luck dice. And so if you want to add a luck dice, and if you, it's a limited resource, so they decline as the game goes on. You only get so many to start with, and just say, I failed. You can use a luck dice. And now it's a 4 and a 3. So it's a 7, but guess what? I still failed. So you could go, you know what? This is an important roll. I need to make it. I got to use another luck dice, and great. I got a 6 and a 3, or 6 and a 4. So now I'm at 10, and I'm good. The other kind of maybe fun aspect to it is when you are really like in need of making a roll, you can even add a doom dice ahead of the roll. So if you click roll there, you can see your 2 5s were in the action dice, and the doom dice that you added didn't actually really help. But now you have to add that onto your doom stack, and your doom stack is how you count the damage and trauma to your character. And when the doom stack topples over, then you are going to be unconscious. So I see we got a question from, or not question, but comment more. Mark, I am doing good, Mark. How about yourself? Thanks for joining me on a Friday. What are you up to? So that's the dice roller, and I like I said, I really enjoy it. It's very quick and easy for me, like when I run a game. And one of the things that I like about it is I can just, like, as a doomsayer, all the cognitive load of like you don't really have to track that much damage or doom to the monsters. You can just concentrate on like telling the story. And I don't mean that in a railroady story kind of way. I mean that in a just telling people what is happening. And so Mark just got home from work. Well, I hope it was a good shift. Are you done for the week? Or is it a weekend working? I'm in my crunch time. I did have a little bit of time tonight, but I have a big event that I'm kind of like doing communication support for. And because of that, like until May 15th, 16th, my life is just kind of too busy for my own good. Good that you're done for the week. That sounds good. And Mark, I'll be sending an adventure in the future. So you have a great idea. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And, just that's what I encourage is just like, lean into your creativity and make a fun game. And like I said, I'm here to support you. If you have any questions or anything like that, I am more than happy to answer that. And so going back to some of the other templates, if you're watching this and you're going, oh, this is the first I've heard of the Fun with Fang Adventure Jam, there's also these other ones I mentioned earlier. There's a brainstorming. So there's like a system that I came up with called AIM, which is action, item, and mystery. So, the action is like, what do the player characters need to do? What's kind of the item involved? It doesn't have to be just a specific item, but it could be like a monster or something like that. And then the mystery, hey, why isn't this so simple? There's a D66 table, or one of them is at least. And so if you roll on the action, there's 6 types of actions. And then within each of those actions, you get 1 to 6. So you roll another die to figure out what the item is. And then finally at the end, you have a D66 table. So that's 36 options to add to the mystery. And then there you go. That's your adventure. So if, I suspect you'll take that and like brainstorm with it and chew on it and go, well, what if I did this instead? And what if I did that instead? So you don't have to stick to this. This is just inspiration for you to kind of figure out what you want to do within the jam. And also, I do have that blog post for OSR design, and kind of, this is, once again, rules light, but the Doomsayer is kind of the person that kind of, for OSR is like, for me, the old style of playing. Doesn't necessarily mean old style of rules. Once again, it says my system is kind of based upon the West End games, Star Wars and Ghostbusters D6, boiled down, twisted around, shaken up. And so it's a little bit different than that, but always in a good way. And I do pay homage to the West End. I can't say enough good things about that system that Sandy Peterson came up with. And, I've hopefully taken it and built something that he enjoys seeing too. And so I also have this idea of the 3 E's, which is E for evoke, enrich a, so you evoke a mood or a feeling, enrich a space with items, and then elicit imagination of players. And that's, to me, what an OSR kind of style or game does. And then I also have a whole bunch of, like I said, illustrators that if you want to learn more about where I got my inspiration, as well as the Pinterest board. And then the other kind of newish one is making magic heirlooms. So for those that are just learning about this game for the first time, what happens is you carry around these big rocks with runes on them. And so it's a weight factor as well. So if you are, everybody can cast magic. So there's 8 character types, but all of them cast magic if they have a rune stone. But you do have to make a saving throw with a doom die if you use that magic, and then it eventually could catch up to you, because if you fail too many of those, your doom stack gets higher. And so the troll Carl, which is wizard in Swedish, they have a higher will, so they don't take usually as much doom, because they make their saving throws a lot easier, and they can also read the runes. And there's edibles. And so the difference is the rune stones are kind of like helpful, but they're not overtly attack mechanisms, because the way the system is set up, like, you might be able to like levitate, or you might be able to like freeze water or something like that. It's not necessarily that you are like attacking like fireballs. There's no fireballs with rune stones. So the rune stones are kind of more like to do things with them, whereas the edibles, they're a little bit more of a wild card, because they're a one and done. So when you take them or you consume them, as an example, rabbit jerky, you grow giant ears and hear anything in the dungeon for 6 rounds. So they always have like almost like a bit of a side effect. A witch's elixir, it removes all the doom on your doom stack, but the character cackles uncontrollably all day long. The turnip provides the character with a giant 5 score of tough for 6 rounds. And then there's the two sardines of swimming. Character can swim masterfully in any current for 10 rounds. So those actually physically often change your attributes, but there's often side effects, and like there's healing. So edibles are kind of like the fun wild card. And so as a Doomsayer, you can provide a lot of those to folks, and they seem to really enjoy having the edibles. But you also have to make a saving throw against your tough. And so if you are a weak wizard, a troll Carl, and maybe not as tough, you might want to use the rune stones more. But if you are a troll with a large tough, like they start off at 4, they're big and strong, and so they can eat a lot of edibles and not kind of have that same experience. So anyways, it's kind of a fun thing. And then finally, magic items, very typical of almost any fantasy game. There's different magic items that you can use at any different time. I really always like this hard Hansk I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but basically it's a gauntlet that you get an advantage for brawling. So like think of it as like a loaded boxing glove, and then the Gatoga, a goat's eye orb. You leave it in a location, and the owner of it can see through it wherever you left it. So I liked its little goat horns. So I explained kind of like if you're making magic items, why you would want to do different types of magic items. And then probably getting to the end here, I wanted to maybe go back into the templates, if you don't mind, and indulge me. I will go into the templates and just kind of show you the InDesign template for the... Oh, sorry, I gotta stop sharing so I can start sharing. Like I said, this is... Okay. So here is, like, as an example, like the King Kringle adventure. If you are new to layout and design, you can see here there's a normal view, a preview, a bleed, and a slug. I'm going to switch to normal view. And so you can kind of start to see all these extra lines that show up here. Now, the template has what is called a bleed. And so between those two lines, the inner line and the outer line here is what they call a bleed. And the point of it is, now the games that you're designing for the Adventure Jam, like you only have to submit it digitally. So, this might not even worry you at any point. But if you go, you know what, I want to sell some of these and I want to print some of these, this is where the print bleed comes in. And what happens is the difference between the purple line and the red line here, and maybe I'll zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. So the difference between here and here is when they print your booklet or your paper, and you can see that the color goes off of the edge, you need to provide them a little bit of safe space that when they eventually cut the paper, that the bleed doesn't have any like kind of white showing, or it's basically a continuation of the image. And so the point of the bleed is that you basically provide extra image so that if they cut it, that it's going to look as good as you can. Now, depending upon your printer, some of them are like really good at cutting. I know, and they also are good at aligning things. Even in this book, like I liked my printer, very fine company. However, I even noticed like there's areas that I'm like, why did they cut there? And they didn't align that there. So I'm kind of nerdy about that stuff. So I notice it. Maybe most people won't, but the whole idea behind it is, as you can see here with this image of, or the map of the King Kringle castle, is this castle goes past the bleed area, so that if I ever do print this, that where that pink line is where it should get cut, but not the printers aren't always on their game, and the blade slips and all that kind of stuff. So, it's a tough job. I wouldn't want to do it. So just to give you an idea of the print. Now, if I go to here and go back to the preview, come on up. Oh, no, it's not working for me. Huh. That's funny. Maybe if I go back here, that'll be better. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll go back to Kringle for a sec here. So maybe I'll go up to the very front cover just to kind of show you. And you can see like my mess. I don't recommend this, but hey, I'm kind of messy. Like when I like start designing and stuff, like I'll test different things of like where I want things to fit. And you can see, so I've got like those files there, and I went, what if I stacked my King Kringle logo instead of having it width? And so I start playing around with this kind of stuff regularly. But If you now go into this file, you can see the difference between the inner and the outer. And if I go here and I go to preview, that's what it should look like when it's printed. You get rid of all of the extra like lines and all that kind of stuff. If you go to bleed, it will show you where the bleed line is. But once again, that's where you print the extra color. And so when they end up slicing it and assembling it, if they make like, you know, a few millimeter error or like a little bit of an error, that's okay. So most printers actually don't require this much bleed. Most of them require only about half of this amount of bleed, but me being me, I thought when I make it, I'd rather have a little bit of extra space. And then the other benefit is that if you want to change things, you have just that little bit more flexibility. And then even within it, like as an example, my image here of the Prince Pumpkin in the yellow, if I move that image, I actually have like a little bit of extra space on that image too, because I want, just in case, you know, like it's better to have like more edge in your art than not enough edge. And if I go through some of the other areas, like when I do my layout, it's kind of, I guess I have a system. It's not always the same, but if I go here and if I go into my King Kringle, and you can see like the bars have their own layer. And eventually, I didn't bring King Kringle into Photoshop, but I eventually will. But you know, this chain here only goes up just a little bit past the bleed. So if maybe it makes sense to add another one there. There's also like the pumpkin prints. And you can see here, he's a vector shape. So if I click on him, I can go in and start moving this stuff around. But what I did is I ended up taking him into Photoshop, and then I added these textures. And so for those that maybe aren't familiar with the difference between vector and raster, vector is where the shape is all mathematically calculated. So you can see here, if I click on his beard, or I don't know what that is, a stem, you can see the shape of it. But if I take it into Photoshop and I start painting it, I lose the ability to actually edit that anymore. It's now like a flattened image. So what I often do is I end up like placing my images in my layout like this first, and just going, okay, I'm happy with that. And then I can copy and paste. And this is where I was talking about earlier of you can copy and paste from one Adobe product into another. And it's just kind of helpful as far as like having that workflow. I understand it's like an ongoing cost and it does suck for that. But I just wanted you to kind of see that. And the same with, I designed Hans and Fran in vector. So if I click on here, I can move different pieces of Han and Fran. But eventually I took it into these two into Photoshop, and I added the texture. So if you go back to the designing monsters, you can see the difference on the texture here and painting it. And I will probably maybe do like a better version of like how to take, you know, a monster and do the texture. Same with Slinger Vaxxed, I've already kind of explained, and these the pumpkin seeds that are there, they are just vectors, so I can move them around. But if you go back up to here, they are shaded and they're Photoshop files. So just I'm hopeful that, like, you know, folks that are watching this can kind of see that there's always like kind of different ways to skin the cat, 6 of one, half a dozen in the other. There's like a whole bunch of different ways. you know, and different layouts that you can choose from. Same with Rock Hurler. I designed him in vector over here just to see if he fit what I wanted him to do. And then eventually I took that into Photoshop and made that clean vector into a textured item. You can see Slinger Vaxxed, the same thing. And I tried different colors for his legs. And that's also one of the other things that is kind of cool about vectors, is very easy to change. If I want to choose a different color, I can change the color in vector. So that's Adobe Illustrator. And then once you get it into Photoshop, you're kind of more locked in. So I'd like to do all my play work in vector. And you can see like the head, the horns here I added later on, because I was like, you know, he wasn't looking tough enough here, and I wanted him to have some horns. So let's see. Sorry, Mark here. What is Mark saying? My group has been playing OSC for a few years now. To test my run adventure, I've asked my local game store to run 2 or 3 free game adventure sessions of your game system. Awesome. Well, I'm happy to hear that. I also have on my website, if you are hoping to run it at a convention or something like that, there's a form to fill out. And if you want to be like a champion of the game, and I can send you some books. So feel free to go that route. There's the Fun with Fang program, as I'm kind of calling it, because nobody can pronounce Fängelsehåla. But anyways, Fun with Fang. And I think that's about it. Like I just want to encourage folks to dig into their creativity, and hopefully, like I've said before, my North Star in all of this stuff, you know, trade wars and all, like every issue that comes our way. I hate WotC. I don't hate WotC. I like 5e. I don't like 5e. Oh, you're not OSR. I'm not, you know, all the drama that usually kind of comes with the hobby. My North Star is indie games and allowing people to express themselves through their game. And if I can assist in that, I hope I can. And if you've stuck around this long, you are a trooper. And so thanks, Mark. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And if anybody has any questions, I am easy to find. Like I said, there's the Itch Jam page, and there's a community thing there. You can ask questions there. There's the Discord. There's links on that page to go to the Discord, and you can ask questions there. You can test your art. There's like lots of folks in the Discord that are like willing to share their thoughts and feedback. And Mark, same to you. Oh, well, I look forward to seeing your entry. I'm like excited to see when some of these start coming in. So we're at 68 people that have, at least at this point, hopefully most of them complete their adventure. And, you know, life is busy, and that's why, you know, there's the whole summer to work on it. But the other thing I encourage you to do, like the templates are, you can just make digital games, right? And I suspect most will. And I'm going to put up another blog post in the future talking about, if you are going to print, here's some of the printing specs and requests that you can make of your printing partner that you choose. And so that you can kind of make it as similar in size and shape. At some point, I mean, in a fantasy world, I suppose, I hope to be able for somebody to buy like booklets from the Adventure Jam myself, and just like be able to like have it all in a box of the same size. So that's why I'm a little bit sticky on, like, if you're making an adventure, make it this size so that people can collect them all and use them together. But once again, it's your adventure. You sell it. If you want to sell it digitally, cool. If you want to print it one day, cool. The templates will allow for that. You know, you can actually publish it digitally sooner than later and keep tweaking it over the summer. Like, you know, as you get it out there. So you can actually have it entered ASAP if you want, and then just keep working on it. It won't be judged until September, and it's a good way to get feedback and people commenting on your stuff and building momentum. So anyways, have a really good rest of your weekend. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out and ask. And if not, like I said, I'm very busy up until like kind of the end of May. So I don't, or like mid-May. So I don't suspect I'll be doing too many more of these live streams. But I suspect in the second half of May, I'll probably pop on and answer some of the common questions that kind of have come up and provide more tools. So with that said, enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody, and just keep on making cool stuff. Okay, bye.
Pettersson var ute och roade sig en kväll. På morgonen han vandrade hem och var så glad och snäll. Men porten den var stängd så han kom inte in. Han kastade grus på fönstret och fick högt frittin. Rackare, trummel, rummelbott och nöt. Hon skrek och hennes mörka ögon himska blixtar sköt. Tänderna lyste, hon var i svår extas. Han måste se på kärgen genom största glas.